This is Norman Biar with the Sales Readiness Group, and it's a pleasure to be a part of the Sales Acceleration Summit. Today's topic is developing great frontline sales managers. It's a topic we're very passionate about, and we think that sales managers really are a differentiator in high-performing sales organizations. As a starting point, I'd like to just spend a minute describing Sales Readiness Group at a high level for those of you who aren't familiar with our work. We really focus on three key areas. One is customized sales training programs. All of our programs are customized for our clients, typically around either foundational or advanced selling skills. The fastest growing part of our business really ties to today's topic, which is sales management and coaching programs. So with that, what I'd like to do is just briefly describe what's so difficult about being a frontline sales manager. And here's just a couple of things. I've worked for years myself in sales management and senior management positions, and obviously our clients have a lot of people who work in these areas. And one of the things you have to realize as a sales manager is there's a lot of things that influence results, and you can't really control all those factors. We have come off about a 4 or 5 year period where the economy was really poor, and obviously that has an impact. There are also cycles in different types of businesses. We also have to learn to live with pressure. Sales results are hyper-visible within every company. They're measured frequently. You're asked to produce pipeline reports, sales forecasts. Another challenge is really managing salespeople. Salespeople are not the easiest people to manage. They have different personalities, they have different levels of experience, and they have different needs, and also they have different motivations. And then in many organizations, sales managers are asked to also have a selling role. It may be on some key accounts. It may be if it's a field position on an open territory. So many managers have the added complexity of having to manage and sell. Generally, our belief is that managers are best spend their time managing and really empowering the salespeople. I'd like to just share a quick pipeline is put together by a great industry thought leader, Ram Charan, and it's called the Sales Leadership Pipeline, and it kind of shows the career path that a salesperson goes through as they might progress in their careers. It starts with a salesperson as an individual contributor, moving to a frontline management position or maybe a supervisor position, then becoming potentially a director or VP of sales, and eventually an organizational leader. For purposes of today's topic, I really want to focus on that first turn. And that first turn from salesperson to sales manager really involves a unique skill set and a change in skills from being an individual contributor. So in sales, is predominantly about you and what you do and what you can control. You might be part of a team, but it's more about your prospecting skills, your planning skills, your presentation skills, your ability to overcome objections, building rapport. And in management, it's really about success through others. So there's a whole new skill set that needs to be learned. And one of the things we could take an analogy from the sporting world is that the best athletes don't always necessarily make the best coaches. Just by way of illustration, we have in the NBA Isaiah Thomas, who has played 13 seasons, 11 times an All-Star, and yet was not very successful as a coach. And then you look at Phil Jackson, arguably the most successful coach of all time, never an all-star, but really a phenomenal coaching record. So what we're not saying here is that sales managers can't necessarily be effective coaches. What we're saying is that there's a new skill set that needs to be learned. And if you look at this slide, you're going to kind of see on the left kind of the skills that really make a salesperson highly effective. A manager is supposed to possess those skills, but also needs to develop the new skills on the right in terms of goal setting or coaching or leadership. And so when we think about this and the way that we've developed our programs, there's a number of ways to address this. We really think these fall in 4 key areas: hiring the right people, managing them, coaching individuals, and leading and inspiring a team. So let's just work through these sequentially. Let's start with hiring. Really important to get the right people on your team. If you have the right, if you look, again, going back to the sporting worlds, if you have the right athletes, it's a lot easier to manage and coach. If you don't have the right team, you kind of have this revolving door where you're always replacing your players. So let's focus on what we can do as managers to get the right people on the team. So it's not a surprise that college football coaches spend more than half their time recruiting. They understand getting the right people on the team is critical. And, we don't always focus on the cost of the wrong person, but there's recruiting costs, there's training costs, there's what we have to pay them. Bigger costs include missed numbers, and, that we underachieved on sales, lost time, and also customer risk. I think it's really frustrating for customers to have a revolving door where the salespeople they're working with change. So a lot of risks associated with hiring the wrong people. That hiring is never an exact science, but we like to encourage managers to think about what are the competencies, and here's a list of 10 of them. What are the competencies that make your most successful salespeople successful? So if you looked at your top 10 or 20%, would it be motivation? Would it be planning and organization? Would it be their work ethic? And these are typically areas that don't show up on a resume. So what we want you to do is think about, okay, which 2 or 3 of these are really critical, and how are we going to discover these in a behavior-based interview? So if you think about behavior-based interviewing, you think about what are those competencies. Again, it could be motivation or work ethic or planning and organization. What behaviors would those people necessarily demonstrate? So how does someone demonstrate they have a strong work ethic? Well, they get to work early every day. They may work a little bit during their lunch hour. They may stay later. They may just have a level of intensity. And then that guides the interview questions. And the type of questions we like to see clients use, STAR questions. And STAR questions is an acronym, stands for situation, task, action, and result. So that if you think about motivation, if you asked any salesperson in an interview, are you motivated? I think they would say, yes, I'm very motivated, and this is really a position I'm highly interested in. So as the manager, you might want to say, well, why don't you describe a situation where you had to demonstrate motivation? And give me something specific if you could. Okay, great. What tasks were involved? What actions did you take? What was the result? And after each of these questions, you really want to become an active listener. So ask the question and then pause. And the same process would apply whether that was for planning and organization or for work ethic or for judgment. So figure out the competencies, figure out the type of questions, and then try and use the STAR questioning format. So given just kind of where we are in time, let's move forward. So we've hired hopefully most of the right people. Now how do we manage them? So we really emphasize having a system for managing salespeople. And at the heart of that system is a performance partnership. So high-performing organizations have a partnership where there's clear expectations, there's a supportive dialogue. So it's not a dialogue where it's argumentative. You're really helping and working with your team to be as successful as possible. People are accountable for behaviors and results, and that really starts on day one. I think that a lot of managers make the mistake of holding people accountable only when things are starting to proceed in the wrong direction. I think you really want to start that at the outset, and then everyone's seeking feedback. There's this culture we're always going to get better. We also really want to focus on behaviors. So I think there's this emphasis on results. I talked a little bit earlier about results being hyper-visible in companies, but one of the things managers have to learn is you can't manage a result. It's something that's already happened. What you want to do is focus on the behaviors that lead to results. I'll give a very simple example. New Year's wasn't all that long ago, and there's a lot of resolutions that people have, let's say one of them being weight loss. Well, you're not going to lose weight by just saying, I'm going to lose weight. The behaviors that might drive that are diet and exercise. So similarly, if you think about sales, the behaviors that may drive increased sales could be more sales calls, better job of preparing for sales calls, better job of pipeline management. So focus on key behaviors that drive sales results. And in terms of the system, just at a high level, the system would involve communicating and monitoring success factors. Once you know what those success factors are, the key results you want to drive, what are those key behaviors that drive those results? Then monitoring for gains and gaps in behavior. A gain is something that someone's doing better than you expected, and a gap is an area for improvement. Then within those gaps, focus on what are the underlying causes. Is it a skill issue? Is it a knowledge issue? Is it a motivation issue? And then that will drive what action you take. So this is a very simplified view of that system, But again, it just gets you thinking a little bit about, okay, what are the results? What are the behaviors? How do I analyze gains and gaps? If there's a gap, what's driving it? And then what actions do I take as a manager? And I think managers will be pleasantly surprised that there's a whole series of actions they can take to improve performance. Coaching. Coaching is a huge buzzword in our industry. And when you think about, managing performance, you think about how do I manage a team. When you think about coaching, you think about how do I drive performance for each individual. And here's a little data from a report we sponsored. The report was conducted by one of our partners, CSO Insights. I think they surveyed roughly 2,000 organizations, and they found that those organizations that have really strong coaching programs have the highest revenue attainment among their salespeople. So there's a pretty compelling business case for coaching. So what is coaching? Coaching really focuses on improving skills and knowledge of each salesperson. Sounds pretty simple, but if it's simple, why don't managers always do it? And I think the answer is there's a number of challenges that managers face when it comes to coaching. They don't know how to coach. So if you weren't trained on how to be a coach, you're going to focus on what you really know best, which is selling, and selling is not coaching. You're really not held accountable. Your company doesn't have a coaching culture. So it's let's just sell as much as we can as opposed to how do we really work with everybody on the sales team to make sure they can sell as much as they can. Time commitment. People think, well, coaching is time consuming. But most activities that have rewards associated with them do take time. And ultimately, if you're a good coach, it will save you time because you're empowering people to solve their own problems. So a lot of managers become chief problem solvers. That is the worst role for a manager. You've got to empower people. And you also want to make sure that coaching is something that's done for everyone. It's not something that's remedial or left for poor performers. It won't be positively received unless you're providing coaching for all levels. So how much time should a manager spend coaching? We would recommend, based on industry research, 25 to 40% of their time should be spent providing coaching to members of their sales team. Now, ironically, where you spend that time could be different than where most managers spend their time. Most managers are focused on the lowest performers. But unless they're new hires, coaching people who have really low skills does not have a higher ROI. I think the question is, if they've been there for a long time and they have low skills, do you really have the right people? In fact, you get a much higher ROI by coaching your higher skill people and the very highest ROI by coaching your medium skill people. So a real important concept in management is moving the middle. Can we empower those people who have medium skills to become top performers? In the interest of time, we won't go through a coaching process in detail other than it really is important to have a coaching model and coaching tools so you can plan appropriately for coaching. That includes assessing the skills of each member of your team, performing pre-call briefings. So if you're going to be listening in on a call, kind of what's the backstory associated with this account, listening or observing the call, and then immediately afterwards, conducting a coaching conference where you lead that sales rep in self-discovery as to what went right, and you provide some positive reinforcement, and then have them articulate to you where they think they can improve, and ultimately following up. So that takes us kind of to the fourth area. So we've covered hiring, managing, and coaching, and now you want to be able to lead and inspire people. So leading and inspire people is really understanding the difference between what leadership means and what managing means. And here's a little graphic that kind of explains. So management is highly reactive, focuses on short-term day-to-day, involves things like sales coaching, improving sales performance. Leaders are proactive. They motivate and inspire. They have a long-term vision. They really help initiate company change and make sure that their team is receptive to change. They learn really what turns each person on their team forward in terms of helping them attain the best results. And they also understand that everyone's different and people have different drives and motivations, and really focus on how to work with each person. Ultimately, when you think about a leadership model, you think about communicating a vision, making better decisions, influencing and managing the people on your team and motivating them, and then improving your personal abilities. So to wrap up, here are key takeaways from our session. Management skills are different than selling skills. These are skills that can be learned by managers. Training sales managers has a very high ROI. The average manager has anywhere between 7 and 10 reports. They're effective at managing. They're going to leverage that across their organization. And then focus on the key sales management skills. And again, they fall in 4 areas. Building your sales team, so getting the right people, managing the team, coaching the team, and then leading and inspiring the team. So again, this is Norman Behar from the Sales Readiness Group. It's been a pleasure to record this session. I hope everyone enjoys it. And if you have questions, please contact us at info@salesreadinessgroup.com. We'd love to continue the conversation. Thank you.